Hello guys and welcome to our first episode of Grief Uncensored.
I'm Julia.
I'm Yako.
And today we're just going to do some introductions.
We're going to tell you guys a little bit about ourselves, why we're doing this, and how we met.
Telling the story.
The story of it all, really. The terrible, terrible story. Honestly, it's that
terrible,
good,
no good, very bad story.
Yeah, no, I'm not
Pretty
being
much.
dramatic. It's just
It
bad.
is.
Yeah.
Trauma. It's a little bit of trauma.
Unpacking it.
Yeah.
Unpacking trauma, not trauma unpacking it. Anyway.
Let's just start with our little friendship that we have.
All right, so me and Julia met. We both went to SDSU, San Diego State University. Shout out to San Diego
SDSU.
State. Yeah, we're both alumni now.
Mm-hmm. We're pretty distant mutual friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
We both end up at this party at Palm Springs. That's where I met her and her boyfriend. But when I met them, I was in a weird state of mind. I wasn't myself. Like, I was very off. What is that?
Just like
standoffish
okay.
is the word, yes.
Yeah, we almost never talked the whole time.
We
like,
did not,
twice.
Maybe once, like, hey, I'm
It
Julia,
was pretty much meeting in passing. But we were, at the same little...
And there was only, 10
party.
people there.
It wasn't a big party. It was not
Yeah, it was, 10 people there, so it wasn't...
No.
There was really no excuse for this, but that's how it was.
So we just kind of met in passing, and then we literally never talked again until, what was it, a year?
Yeah, it was, probably a year had passed, and then... I think I honestly don't really remember if my friend mentioned something, when my dad passed, there's this girl that I'm mutually friends with. She lost her mom this year too. And then I was like, oh, let me look her up or something on Instagram. And then I came across her Instagram. And then the one post that she had at the time, you had, was just like a montage, a little slideshow of her graduation, and the caption was just a very detailed description of what she had went through that past semester, just writing her mom's eulogy at the same time of trying to complete assignments to graduate. And I was like, damn, I never related so hard to a post that anyone's ever fucking made. I was bawling reading that.
Aww.
I was like, damn, I'm gonna have to reach out. So I reached out to you like I had never met you, because I honestly forgot. I was like, can't wait to meet you in person one day, forgetting that I ever had. But yeah, basically I reached out to her. I said a little thing oh my God, that's terrible. I'm sorry that you went through that. And then she was like, I'm sorry you can relate to that. Yeah. And then we just kind of started hanging out, and that's it. Yeah.
Just off the bat, obviously we really had no one else in our small circle of friends who could relate to us at all, and I was feeling so fucking isolated, and I really couldn't talk about how I was feeling to anyone, other than my sister, of course, who's of course going through the same thing. And you want your friends to be there and support you, and it's really hard to be the friend of a grieving person. So it was just sad fate for both of us to find each other.
Yeah. There's only so much the other person can say and do, and it's just difficult for someone that hasn't been through that to try to come up with the things to say to support that person, even though they want to. They often just don't know how.
We're definitely going to do an episode, maybe the next one, about friends and how grief changes friendships and all that hard stuff.
But today we're going to be going deeper into the passing of our loved ones, our parents, her mom, my dad, and we're going to be telling you guys the sad story. Hopefully this won't be too sad, although it is sad. You know what? It's going to be real, because I'm not going to, it's not a good story. There's no happy ending in this one, but this is just the story that's led us to this point, and it's important for us to share it. And you know what? There was this interview that Andrew Garfield was saying, I think it was on Jimmy Fallon, he was saying that he hopes this grief stays with him forever, because his grief for his mom that had passed is just the unexpressed love that he had for his mom. And this is what this podcast is. This is us expressing our unexpressed love for our loved ones.
Yeah.
So, you know what? It might be sad, but it's necessary, and it comes from a place of love, ultimately.
you know, like when they're gone, you can't talk to them, and when you talk about them or even mention something in passing, like, oh, my mom loved that, you know, it's like you're going to get some awkward silences, you're going to get some people looking away, like even your best friends are going to be like, oh god, she just mentioned her mom, like, like, and this is another reason, like, the unexpressed love, we didn't get enough time with our parents, and that's the bottom line. You know, we were supposed to have so much longer with them. They literally died in their 50s. You know,
54, both of them.
Yeah, and you know, it's exactly what you said, the unexpressed love, and also just talking about them and is bringing us back together with them too.
Exactly.
And yeah, I really want you guys to know, you know, what happened, because I want this to be as relatable as possible. And I know that even though I haven't met someone specifically with my, you know, exact timeline and, you know, situation of how the death occurred and stuff, I know that I'm not alone, and I know that you're not alone either. You know, cancer deaths and accidental deaths, they literally happen every day, everywhere. And like, I want to talk about it, and I want to have the platform that is real and is gonna get people to be like, damn, like, that is exactly what I'm going through. And you're not alone. That's the main reason.
Basically.
So, yeah, I guess I'm gonna start.
Okay.
I'm just gonna briefly talk about how everything happened and how it went down, and then some overall, you know, immediate struggles, and just like overall how it was being in college. So I was just finishing up my second to last semester at San Diego State, and it was the day of pretty much my last final, if I remember. And yeah, I like am waiting for my parents to get here. They're driving, making a little road trip down to Florida, and then they were gonna fly from Florida to San Diego to come see me and my sister for my birthday and then Christmas. So they were gonna be
Where were they
here for a few
driving
weeks.
from to Florida?
Montreal. So they were making a big road trip.
Yeah.
They made it as far as Virginia. Just so happens where I also grew up there for a good like 10, 12 years before I moved abroad for high school, half of high school. You know, it was just coincidental, but it happens. Fuck Virginia. Anyway. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so they were making a road trip down to Florida and then coming over here. Never made it to Florida. Basically, there was a car accident. There was a couple vehicles involved, but, you know, there was a big 18-wheeler. Ran everyone off the road. And my parents were one of them. So my mom did not make it. She was in the passenger seat, and my dad was driving. He was unscathed physically, mentally. Of course, that's a completely different story.
Right.
And he had to witness my mom and our cute little buddy, little terrier mix. You know?
Yeah.
So that is the occurrence. That is the incident. And it's been a year. It was literally a year, like 10 days ago, literally, was the anniversary. And, you know, that whole year, this whole year has been literally hell. Just hell. I mean, how else do I even describe it? There was some joyous moments where I was like, okay, I'm feeling joy right now. Wow, that's like a first in a long time. But I like to describe it as like, you know, some people I like on grief Instagram, like I literally see people like, oh, joy and grief like coexist. And I'm like, okay, that's true. Yes, I have felt joy and grief at the same time, but like they're not separate. Like for me now, all my joy or my joyous moments, let's say, are still like heavy. And absolutely. I'm really hoping that goes away with time, and I think it does.
I think it gets less intense, but I definitely know what you mean. It's like just even your happiest moments, you kind of wish you could share with them.
Exactly.
And
you can't
it's
like
just bittersweet. But.
Exactly. And yeah, like you want to share it with them, you want to have this joyous moment, and then you kind of up, and then you're like brought down. Oh, my mom's dead. Like, damn, like she's not gonna be at my wedding. She's not gonna see my kids, future potential children. Like, she never got to meet our little rescue dog. She never got to see Lily turn 10, almost 11 now. Like, just all these things that you want to share, and that's never gonna go away.
And
like,
your graduation,
of course,
which was
like
right
my graduation.
after.
So back to the story. So, you know, I'm at my birthday party, and my parents were supposed to be here in a couple days, and it was the 11th. I'm at my birthday party with my 2 friends. Put this little like mini birthday party on for me. It was just small, and it was just gonna be like a great night. You're just gonna have a girls' night and drink some wine, and you know, have a great time. And I was going into the grocery store to get a few things with them, and right before I get out of the car, I like get a phone call, and I'm like, okay, like I'm at my birthday party, like I don't think I'm gonna answer right now. And then I don't answer, and then my friend is like, your boyfriend's like trying to like reach you, like you should answer him. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Like usually he just like texts me, you know, but he texted her. And so she was like, oh, you need to answer. And I was like, okay. So I like call him, or maybe he calls me again. And he's just like freaking out. Like he's like, I need to come pick you up. I need to come pick you up right now. I'm like, bro, what the fuck's going on? Like literally, I'm like, what's going on? Like he's like, I don't know. Like I just have to come get you. Like, and then I think he was even saying like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? But I'm telling you, like I never thought for 1 second that somebody died. Like I literally was like, oh, he's high and he's having a bad trip or something. Like this man doesn't even do drugs. But like that's like what was going on in my head. I was like. And I just pranced around after I hung up with him, I was like, okay, fine. Like, I don't know why, but, like, you want to come pick me up for my birthday. Like, I don't know. Maybe this is, like, some weird surprise, and they're going to, like, fucking, I don't know. Like,
just
I don't know.
Optimistic.
Right. I was never.
Or ignorant, rather.
Never thinking something like this could ever happen. It's literally out of a movie. I never thought that would be my life.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something I'll talk about later. Like, when this happened, like, literally, it was like a movie.
Yeah.
It was like a literal movie. You just step out of your body, and it's like you're watching this shit happen. All right, so I answer the phone call. He's saying, I need to come get you. And I'm like, okay. I'm telling my friends, I'm like, I don't know why, but he's like, I need to come pick you up right now. And I'm like, I remember saying, like, babe, I'm at my birthday party right now. Yeah. Like, what do you mean you have to come get me? Like, can't this just wait? He's like, I'm so sorry, but I have to come right now. And so I was worried, but I was not jumping to anything crazy at all. And usually that's like not, I'm usually more anxious like that. But I'm seriously saying, like, I never would have thought that was
I mean, who would have think that,
And my parents always go on road trips. Like, since I was young, we just are always road tripping somewhere. Like, we were just loved being in the car together. Right. So he gets there, and he just, like, come down, like, get in the car. So I, like, just get in the car, and he's like, your parents, like, were, like, something happened. I think he said something happened, and I was like, what? And then I definitely start freaking out because you can see it on his face. You can see it on his face. And he is kind of vague, and he's not saying it. He doesn't know what to say. Well, how do you say this to your girlfriend? Like, yeah. Oh, actually, I forgot a part of the story.
Okay, yeah, go.
After he hung up with me, and he was, like, saying he's going to pick me up, I was concerned for him. I was like, oh, this man's, like, having something wrong with him. Yeah. So I texted my sister, and I was like, have you talked to him? Like, why is he acting weird?
Yeah. And did your sister know?
Yeah, she knew at that point. And she's like, yeah, I know. But she didn't say, she didn't respond. She did not respond. But I texted her that because I was like, the fuck? And she didn't answer. But obviously, she probably read it and was like, bitch, her mom just fucking died, like, and she doesn't know yet, so she wasn't gonna text me it.
Right.
So he tells me, and I'm just like shocked. I literally just sit there and I ask, "Is this a joke? Like, is this a prank? Is this a prank?" And like this is just like, I didn't actually think it was a fucking prank, but that's what came out, and I basically just sunk. Like, all of me just sunk, and in a matter of, like, 2 seconds, I, like, open the door to the car, and I'm, like, on the ground, like, trying to fucking gauge, like, I'm, like, spinning. I'm, like, having an out-of-body experience. Yeah. And, like, I remember it, like, I just couldn't see. And I was, like, spinning, kind of, but I couldn't breathe. Like, you just are just, it's so hard to explain, but you just are shocked.
Yeah.
Shock.
It's a full body
your
shock.
whole full body shock. Can't breathe, can barely see straight, can't even think straight. That's why I was like, is this a prank? Is this a prank? And I'm like, tell me you're kidding, like begging him, trying to say like, please tell me this is like not real.
Right.
And he's just like, I'm so sorry. And like, you could just see it on his face.
Right.
And my friend, I start walking in the road, like probably like a fucking zombie. I can't see. And my friend's like runs up to me, and I'm just like, probably, I should probably ask her, but I was just like screaming, crying.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all in a matter of like 30 seconds. Sick. Oh my god, like freaking out, screaming. And then she just like grabs my shoulder, and she's like this.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, what's wrong? Like, what is it? Like, and I'm just like looking at her, but like, I wasn't actually in myself. Like, I was literally having this out-of-body experience. And then she's just like, and then I just say, my mom died. But I say it like, my mom died. Like, I just like spit it out.
Yeah.
And it was like a blurt. Like, I didn't want to say it, but I had to blurt it out. And I pretty much just lost it from there. But I was just like, I need to get home. And I think I stopped crying on the car ride back. It was like 20 minutes on the car ride back. But like, I was silent. Everyone was silent. Me and my boyfriend just sitting there, and I was just silent. I was sunk into my chair. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even like sit up, and like I wasn't even like shaking or anything. I was literally just like still.
Just shunned.
And
Or
all
not
I remember
shunned, like
thinking in the
stunned.
car ride back is, I just need to be really strong, like for this right now. Like, I just need to be really strong. Like, I have to walk into the house and see my sister sitting there, and I just can't believe it. This is like a movie. Like, you know, it's still shock and denial.
Right.
And I also remember thinking, damn, it's going to be really traumatic to go back to that girl's house. And to be on this road. The house that I was at for my birthday party.
Oh, right. Did you go back?
I did go back, like,
oh my God.
a good few months. Maybe like 6 months after, I don't know. And it was.
I thought you meant that night.
It was a little weird.
Yeah.
But I mean, I left like my wallet there and stuff. I literally rushed out. I was like, I need to go, I need to leave. So we get in the car and then we go, and then I don't cry. I literally just, I'm like, fuck. Like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, all this. So I walk in the house and I see Ella, and she's sitting there on the couch with her friend. And I just open the door. I literally don't say anything. I open the door. I don't even step in. And I just look at her, and I'm just like this, like, no expression. Like, shock expression, probably. And she just goes, do you know? And I was like, yeah. And so I just, like, sat next to her. And it was really interesting because every time she would be, like, crying or losing it, I would be, like, totally not emotional. Expressively emotional, of course. I was fucking losing it, too. But but then when I would have, like, one of my emotional breaks, then she would be. It was, like, a really weird fluctuation. It was really interesting. And this went on, like that, like, for the next 2 weeks or even more. Like, every time I would be crying, she would be like, it's fine, it's okay, like, comforting. But when she would be crying, I wouldn't be we never really bawled and freaked out at the same time. So, basically, me and my sister, I call, like, my uncle, and then I call my dad, I think, and I'm, like, pacing in the backyard, like, fucking freaking out. I make a couple phone calls to a few of my friends, too. I think, like, maybe 2 people. And the word just spreads from there. I'm really sorry to those people who got that phone call, because that was, you know, me utterly just in panic mode. But I knew I needed to tell people what was going on, because I was going to be leaving, and my life was forever changed from that moment. So I think a day passes, me and my sister fly to Virginia, and there sets off the rest of our year. You know, we had an open casket for a very small amount of people in Virginia, just her immediate family, you know, her brothers and her sister, and it was extremely intimate, and it was extremely soon. I just can't even begin to describe walking or actually my dad had to literally pull me out of the car when we arrived.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I could name 5 to 10 to 25 specific instances where I just had complete emotional dread. Like, I was a complete fucking mess, distraught on the plane. Like, imagine finding out that your mom has just died in a car accident. It's fucking birthday, it's fucking Christmas, and you're about to see her. You haven't seen her in so long because it was like a long time in college. It was like a year. I hadn't seen her, literally.
Yeah.
And, or maybe not a year, maybe like, it was less than a year. But anyway, it was a while.
It was a long time.
Cause
you get used to only seeing your parents, like, I mean, unless they live in the area you're going to college.
Well, we went away to college, so.
Yeah, exactly.
We didn't see our parents. We only saw them for certain holidays and stuff.
Right.
So, let's see where I'm at in the story. So, yeah, the plane ride. Mm-hmm. Now that, if you've ever
plane ride to Virginia.
Yes. Mm-hmm. If you've ever been.
6 hours, just so you know.
If you've ever been, I am just so sorry. Every time I see someone crying on the plane now, I'm like, I feel you, dude. Like, I've been there. You know, like, sometimes people on the plane try and talk to you, and they're, like, friendly.
Oh,
and I think the person to the right of me was, like, a little bit friendly. Like, I remember maybe she was, like, cracking a joke to me or something.
Yeah.
And I was just remember thinking,
was the plane, like empty almost? Because it was...
I don't remember it being empty, no. Our whole row was full, so...
Okay.
But, yeah, like, I remember the lady, like, she maybe cracked a joke, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, you have no idea what's happening in my life. You have no idea. Mm-hmm. Like, if you...
You're like...
and, you know, there's a certain feeling you have when you're going through something so terrible and, like, so unspeakable, just unfathomable, that you're looking at everyone else in the world. You have this level of distance between everyone because you're just like, look at all these people like living their lives at the airport, and me, I'm like literally about to go see my dad who just became a widow, and just everything was a dread. You just did not want to be facing this, you know, the whole time. You just have, and this definitely lingered, but it's just like suicidal ideation. It's different than suicidal like thoughts or planning, but it's, you don't want to be living. You do not want to be living this situation, and you would literally do anything to be not you right now. Yeah. You know? And that's when those thoughts began. You have, it was, how do I say this? So there's just a certain level of, you're just looking at these people and you're like, you know how people say, like, oh, when you're in the airport, like, you can't believe all these people are real?
Oh, yeah.
It's like that.
It's like that times 10.
Yeah, exactly. It's like just this degree of, like, I can't believe that I'm me right now, and I can't believe that I'm going through this. This is just, like, the worst thing you could ever imagine. And it's just your brain literally in your head all the time being like, I can't believe this is fucking happening. What the fuck is happening? Like,
yeah, this can't be
real. And it is, exactly. You just, like, this can't
still
be
denial,
real right now.
the first stage of grief, if you will, which is denial.
Yeah. I mean, I was denial stage for, like, a long time, if you want to put it in stages.
Denial.
Yeah. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, whatever. There's really...
There's no such thing as stages, by the way. If you ever hear, like, the 5 stages of grief, that's not for grieving people, I believe, is what I read.
It's not really, like, a ladder of, like, oh, you're first here, then you're here, then you're there, and you constantly go up and down these stairs, or if you want to even put it in the stair analogy, like, you can go from acceptance back down to shock, denial.
Exactly.
Like, it's not a linear, like, healing is not linear, but neither is grief. It's kind of like a circle. You're just...
Totally. It is.
It's a cycle of these repetitive thoughts and...
Exactly. So, I would say, at least for me, like, because it was a sudden death, it was a long, long shock and denial stage. Air quotes. You know, so some overview of the worst parts was, one, seeing my dad sitting there picking us up from the airport. You know, he's just sitting there with his head down waiting for us to get there, and I, like, see him from across the baggage claim, and again, it's just like, oh my fucking God.
Did you cry when you saw him?
Oh my fucking God. No. But I was crying on the plane a lot, like silently bawling. I don't know if you've ever silently bawled, but it is painful.
Oh, I have.
And your heart is just hurting, and you're just like...
You can't stop.
It is immense sorrow and pain.
Unexplainable.
Yeah. You're thinking of every single thing in that moment. Like, 6 hours on a plane, okay? Mm-hmm. You are thinking of every single thing that you said to her, that you've ever done, that would have ever been, and everything that will never be.
Right.
So that is an excruciating
well
6
said.
hours. But that's not the only time you're thinking those things. But that is just an example of what was happening.
What else are you
going to
do in those 6 hours besides think about those things?
No, there was absolutely nothing you could do. I couldn't even listen to music. Oh my God. For like a couple months, I couldn't listen to any music because it was just too much emotion. Any song.
Yeah.
Like, literally, I could be listening to fucking Jason Derulo and it'd be like, like, literally. Like, they're just too triggering, even some random song. Another highlight, if you will, of that great Virginia trip was pulling up to the funeral. Like, that was absolutely disturbing. I sat in the car, slumped, literally just like trying to fucking wipe my tears away. All my makeup was already gone. And I'm like, I have to get out of this car right now and step into the parking lot and hug my uncles who, like, no, like, this is fucking unfathomable. And everyone got out of the car and I stayed in and I was like, oh my fucking God, like watching from the window, like just absolutely freaking out. And then my dad comes and opens the door. He's like, come on, like, you have to get out. Like, I know, like, you have to get out. So I get out and, you know, hug everyone. And I keep talking about this out-of-body experience, but this is, what is it called? Dissociation. Yeah. Dissociation. That is what I experienced immediately when my boyfriend told me. It's what I continued to experience during the open casket, during my dad picking us up in the airport, all these things, which creates a pretty foggy memory, but also just not a good habit to get into. And it's not conscious, but, you know, your brain's the one doing the dissociating. I'm not purposely dissociating. Yeah. But it's like a coping mechanism, and it continued on even after the original trauma. That's the hard part, and that's honestly the important part, is that after these traumatic events happened, finding out, taking the plane, seeing my dad, seeing my uncles, seeing her in the casket and stuff, like, even though I was literally freaking out and, like, literally staring at her dead body, like, sitting there fucking cold and doesn't even look like her, and, like, you know, like, that is the traumatic event. But it honestly just got worse. It just continued to get worse. Yeah. All the secondary losses, all the things that happen after, all the things that you have to deal with, all the things that you have to think about, you know, everything that you have of her, and it all just keeps adding on. So it progressively got worse from that moment. Like, it's not finding out.
The worst is not over.
The worst
is just beginning.
Is not finding out that she's died. The worst is literally
everything
yet to come.
Comes
everything after that. Exactly. So that was the trauma. Yeah. And ever since then,
definitely not.
I personally, at least, that dissociation, that out of body experience, like, that continued even well after all year. For not specifically traumatic things. Yeah. But I really felt depersonalization, derealization in everyday moments. That was just how I was living now. Like, I am not me, and, you know, I'll talk about this more in a later episode, but it felt like once she died, the rest of my life literally came crumbling down. My friends came crumbling down, my life came crumbling down, just everything really broke down, and it felt like basically my whole life was just blown up And then I was walking through the rubble of it, and I had to start fucking building a life again.
Starting over.
Felt like completely starting over.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for the people and the certain things in my life that stayed through that. But there was not a lot of them. There really was not a lot of them. So, yeah, just wanted to say that to those people. I'm really grateful for those certain people. And then, of course, the new people like you. So that is the life that was being rebuilt, the life that we're literally sitting in now. In a new apartment.
Yep.
Like all those fun things that I couldn't share with her. So it's just like countless moments all year where you want to share this with her and you want to talk to her and you need to get her advice.
Yep.
And
especially in this transitional time as you're graduating, trying to figure out who you are, who you want to be, like, for the rest of your life. Like, this is the time you want to reach out, talk to her the most and ask her, what the fuck should I do? And the fact that you can't...
I'm going to speak on that, actually, because, when you're 21, you're graduating. So, I turned 20... She died. I turned 22 a couple days later. So all of 22 was like, 22 is supposed to be such a great year. You graduate college, you get your first job, you get your first apartment, like, your life comes together. No, it was literally the fucking opposite. It was so traumatic. Like, talk about, like, people who have a hard time transitioning out of college. No, like, literally, I felt like it was even harder. So I graduated somehow. That fucking semester was... Oh my God. I don't even know how I got through it. Again, I was dissociated the whole time.
Right.
It feels like it wasn't even me graduating on that stage. I might as well not have been there because I literally felt so dissociated. Derealization. Depersonalization. Don't really know the difference.
Like numb.
One of those.
Yeah.
And yeah, completely numb. It was a joyous event that should have been so like a relief. And it was a relief in a way because I was like, oh my God, I never have to go back to school again, thank God, because that semester was literally hell on earth. And like that's your capstone semester too. So like that's pretty much the hardest semester you'll have is your very last one, at least for my major. Yeah. And for the most part, my professors were really helpful, and they knew about my situation. It
was Zoom University.
Yes, Zoom University, you guys. So, it was much better to do it in my bed, crying, and I could turn off my mic and have a fucking panic attack and then turn my mic back on. Or my, camera. Yeah, like, have a quick panic attack, turn the camera back on, you're fine. It's fine. But I told all my professors, I reached out to the dean, and he did it all for me. And
that's
everyone
really nice.
was very supportive.
I mean, the least they could do, at least.
Yeah. So, that was really traumatic. And we can totally talk about college later episode. But I'm trying to stay on the introduction.
Yeah.
But, and then there was graduation, and that's really my story.
Okay. I like that. I like that.
I love your story, dude.
I love your story, dude. That story is sick.
Yes.
No, but I appreciate you going into, like, details that are not easy to say out loud. Like, the whole theme of this podcast is definitely going to be going into some of the vulnerable, touchy subjects, and it's not easy to say these things, especially in front of a camera. It feels pretty unnatural, but, you did
I think,
that.
There's so many things that I've thought about, like how I experienced derealization, or how the fuck I even graduated, or all the friends that bailed on me, like all that stuff, but I never really spoke it out. I just was like, oh, this is happening to me. So it's hard to get it in a story, it's speaking it out and a whole thing, but overall,
in a cohesive timeline.
Overall, it will all become clear, all the puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
But overall, that's my story. It was, that traumatic event, and then all the things that came after. And that's definitely what all the rest of our episodes are going to be about, all the things that came after. Yeah. And all the things that we're dealing with, like the anxiety that comes with it. Like I mentioned, dealing with those, really dark thoughts.
Right.
And, of course, dealing with death, something so apparent, something that is literally going to happen to us, going to happen to everyone. If you love someone,
You're gonna grieve.
You're gonna grieve.
Period.
If you love anyone, you are gonna grieve, and that is why it is so crucial to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because
It's
I literally lived all my 22 years, before she died, never really being touched by it.
Right.
My grandma died. I was pretty young.
Mm-hmm. How old were you?
I was 10.
Okay.
And then around the same time, I think 10, my grandpa died.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty much the only death that I've ever really experienced.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I wasn't I don't remember feeling dread. I just was 10 years old and I was living life, and I knew that my mom's mom passed away. And I remember being at my grandma's funeral, and my cousin was like, "Why aren't you crying?"
Yeah.
And I was like, I guess I'm not sad. I don't know.
No, that's not true, but it's just that statement alone is just
I'm 10 years old, I don't really understand.
And also everybody grieves differently, as everybody always
course.
says, and someone being like, "Why aren't you crying?" It's just okay, well, you don't know.
Well, of course I understood that my grandma wasn't here anymore, and I understood that I wasn't going to see her again. I was not understanding that my mother just lost her mother.
Yeah,
I was not
exactly.
understanding that I was never going to see her again. Oh, no, I knew I was never going to see her again, but I was not understanding all these deep things.
I was
seeing
understanding this loss outside of the loss it was
level.
for you.
Exactly. It wasn't my loss. It was my mom's loss, and I wasn't seeing it that way because I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, all that to say, that's really the only thing that I've never ever felt this amount of sadness before, and it's coming and confronting death. Damn, people just literally drop off the face of the earth, and I think this might be true even more so. I hate to say more so, but in a specific way for sudden death, because you're not thinking about death at all as even an option, or it's not in your brain at all, but then all of a sudden, boom, off the face of the earth. Whatever you said to them last, that's the last thing you're gonna fucking say to them.
Yeah.
Whenever you talked to them last, that was the last time, all of those things. And I know that is a universal experience no matter how you die, but I think for me personally, it added to the shock factor.
Oh, absolutely. It's you just heard from them yesterday and they were fine. They're...
Exactly. You were supposed to see them in a couple days.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Feels... not our headphones. Okay. So I guess it's my turn now. Fun. But, my experience was just obviously not the same just because my dad passed from cancer. It's one of those things when he got diagnosed in 2018, 3 years before he passed. It's when you get diagnosed, that's when you first think of the possibility of that person passing away. You're like, fuck, this could kill them. And the way I found out is kind of random. So I was going through Instagram, and I came across this post, this person that I knew in high school, their mom had cancer, stage 4 ovarian cancer. The post was about how their mom beat it. And it was oh my God, my mom is so strong. She beat stage 4 ovarian cancer. She's in remission. I'm so thankful. It's been so hard. Obviously, everything you could imagine this post being, that's what it was. And I was shocked because this was the first time I found out that they even had the cancer in the first place, let alone beat it. So I was like, oh my God, to my dad. I was like, oh my God, did you know, how the fuck would he know? But I was like, oh my God, you remember that person that I used to know back in the day? Well, their mom had cancer and they beat it, just out of the blue. And that's when my dad was like, oh, you know what, that's funny you mentioned cancer because I have it. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't think he said it quite like that, but that's how it felt to me.
Yeah.
It was just I can't believe you just brought up cancer because I do have to tell you the fact is that I have cancer. I don't really remember. This was so long ago now to me and so much things have happened in between that I can't even remember my reaction or how I felt. I was just, cancer has always been my biggest fear. Since I saw my sister's keeper when I was like fucking 8, I have had this deathly fear for cancer. In 3rd grade, I like wrote this letter. I don't know, I had fucking bronchitis and I was out of school for a month, but I wrote a eulogy for myself and I was like, I was like 8, okay? This is really fucked up, yeah. But I thought I had cancer. I just was so scared of it.
God.
I was like, read this if I die. Fucking morbid. I don't know, yeah.
Oh,
but I was like,
God.
if you are reading this, if you're hearing this letter, it means that I have passed. And I'm not trying to say this to be funny, but like this is actually something that I did. No, this is actually something that I did because I was so afraid of it.
Oh.
And it's honestly funny now because I was 8 and I was like, you know, it was like whatever, but that's just to go to show that my whole life I've always been afraid of this fucking thing called cancer. Now it's presence in my life. I'm like, oh shit. Also, my grandpa, maybe in the same year, he passed away with liver cancer. So I don't know if it was, I think they might have had some overlap where my dad and him both had cancer and they were still alive. But yeah, that was a thing too. So the cancer is just a huge fear. When I found out about my dad having cancer, instantly, I'm pretty sure I had to think, what if he dies from this shit? You know, like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like naturally your thought.
But I was like, he's strong. He's always been strong, and like, I have so much faith and hope that he's gonna get through this. Like, so many people overcome cancer, not as much as the people that don't, but you know, there are some odds of like, you can get over this, you can fight this. There's just like this hopeful mindset when people get diagnosed, like, okay, we're gonna go game mode, you're gonna get that chemo, you're gonna fucking fight this every day, you're gonna eat right, and you're gonna fucking get it. You're if anyone's gonna survive, it's gonna be you kind of mentality.
Yeah.
And so that's what I thought, and I and
You're fine, take your time.
yeah, it's just, I didn't think that I was going to do that, but here I am.
It's funny because I was just thinking, how I can't believe I didn't cry when I was saying my
I
part.
can't believe you didn't cry. I was about to cry.
I'm like a little numb to speaking it out now because I've told my story a good amount of times.
I haven't told my story like in the full.
Also because like for this past year, I've had to reconfront the accident over and over, like with all the what's it called? Legalities of car accidents. Like we've had to live it every single day over and over, so I think that's why.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure.
But this is so good and you're doing a great job
so
far. And you're really well spoken and this is the real raw that we're talking about, so.
Yep. Here we go. First cry of the fucking
Woo!
podcast.
Wait, cheers!
All right, so yeah, that's what happened. For me, I was in college for a lot of this, so there was that where I wasn't his primary caretaker. I wasn't there to see him go to chemo and come back. Of course, when I came back in the summer, I was witnessing him in that state a little bit, but ultimately it was my sister who was there to see him daily and fight with him about trying to keep him alive and, you know, just doing things for him like cooking, doing his laundry, making sure he takes his medication, all of that. That responsibility ultimately fell onto my sister, which is honestly, it wasn't her responsibility. It's not something she should have had to do, but I guess she felt honestly, truly that if it's not me, no one's gonna do it. I know that that's really fucked up to say out loud, but I was in college and I don't know. It just didn't feel like a possibility for me to go and do that, even though I could have dropped out or I could have transferred and I could have just stayed with him and been there for him and my sister through this whole process, you know. But I don't know. It just didn't happen. It just didn't. And so when I found out, you know, it was something I talked about a lot with my friends, especially like my close roommates. And every time I would drink, I would fucking end up crying because I'd be like, fuck guys, what if he passes away? Like, and they'd be like, oh no, like, it's gonna be fine. Like, you know what I mean? Ultimately, it's this state of dissociation like you were talking about for 3 years. Me just not trying to think about this reality at all. Just trying to do what I could, what I had to do, which was just live my life. And I don't know, like, I was trying my best to continue on to do what I had to do in California, which ultimately made him proud, which I wanted to do that to make him proud, you know, and that was my only option as I saw it at the time, was I have to get this degree. My parents are paying so much money for me to get this degree already, like, I have to finish, I want to make him proud. I was at a school that he ultimately went to and introduced me to, and I was just like, I don't know, I want to graduate and I want to make him proud, and that's what my mentality was. And then there was maybe like a year later in June, he had gotten the surgery, and I was in New York for that whole summer. It was like 3 months. That's where I'm from, clearly. That's why I'm wearing this New York Yankees jacket. Yeah, this is his jacket, by the way. But I was there for 3 months. In that time that I was there, he went through the surgery. I was in and out of the hospital visiting him. And there was this time, I just remember rejoicing because they were like, we got the cancer out, like this, and we were just so happy. Like, there's a picture of my sister just like cheesing cheek to cheek, like hugging him, like we're just like, thank God he rang the cancer bell, the classic cancer bell.
Oh, God.
Ultimately, what they don't tell you is that cancer has a bitch-ass tendency of coming back.
Right.
So if you're not in remission for, let's say that quota is 5 years, you're technically, you can't really, it's too early to say that you're cancer-free, because it can come back. There's so many odds of it coming back, and it's just an endless battle of that. It doesn't end there. But, basically, we just were so hopeful in this time that he had beaten it, but it came back, like, of course it did. And after that, it was just, the hope kind of disappeared. Actually, no. For me, the hope stayed. I was very hopeful. My sister was very hopeful too, but that hopefulness pissed my dad off because he lost hope. So when we were like, Dad, you gotta keep fighting, he was like, please don't say that to me because it hurts so bad, because he had given up. He hadn't given up, but he knew what everybody had to say, but he knew his own body the best. So as much as we were like, you can do this, he knew ultimately that there was a bigger chance of him not overcoming at this point, which we were in denial about accepting. So we were like, Dad, come on, like, and he was just like, please, I don't want to hear this, it's so painful to hear. And that was like a huge point of contention in our relationship, just because I would fucking come back with like random like mushroom remedies from California and be like, oh, here, you gotta start taking this. And he would not take it, obviously, because he'd be like, what the fuck is this? Like, it's not gonna do anything.
Damn random tincture.
Yeah, no, I literally got him like a lion's hair, like lion's mane, like mushroom tincture. They were like, this is great for colon cancer. I'm like, these people at the OB farmers market told me that this is gonna cure your shit. Take it. No, seriously. And I started doing research on like what he should eat.
It's just funny because if you've seen the OB's farmers market, this is not like where you take medical advice.
Yeah, it's just like a bunch of hippies on the beach, like, oh yeah, like we're yeah, exactly that kind of vibe, and that's who I ultimately took advice from.
I mean, I would take it too. Like,
I was down to take any advice.
I believe in those mushrooms.
Yeah, I was at the point where I would have given my dad anything for him to feel better. I was like, Dad, you should start smoking weed, so like you can get that appetite stimulant going. Mostly, I just wanted to smoke with him. I was like, let's smoke some weed. I think it would be fun. But and everything I say, I kind of feel guilty saying, because ultimately I wasn't the one watching him up close deteriorating. My sister was. So for me to be like, it was so sad to see him go through that, I saw maybe 10% and she saw like 90. You know what I mean? So I don't really feel right saying it's so sad to see him deteriorating in this state. It was. When every time I would come home, he would feel so much lighter, and like his face just started like getting skinny, and I still recognized him, but it was a whole new version of him. Then there was a couple times me and him would like walk in the city, and we would walk up a flight of stairs, and he would be out of breath, and we would have to just sit there, and I would just be like, all right, take your time, and he would just be sitting there out of breath, trying to like regain his strength, because it was everything out. I can't believe he was doing all that through chemo. Like he was still a photographer at this time, so sometimes he would still go out and do shoots, but it was a lot for this man to do all that through chemo and still try to like keep up with me and my sister's pace of like going through the city and just doing all these random things with us. But he really did. He just tried to do as much as he can. It came to the point where it was like he was living in Brooklyn. He would have to travel all the way into Manhattan, take either the subway, dirty ass subway, 1 hour into the city to go to the hospital like once a week, or my sister would have to drive him like 30-40 minutes to the city. And it was just a lot. So, and also the language barrier. My dad is Japanese. He's a Japanese immigrant. He spoke English, but it wasn't not well enough to understand this medical jargon they're spitting at him about his cancer. So a lot of the times he would have to have a translator there, or my mom, who acted as his translator, which she really wasn't there often. So it was like this random person. And it was just like how much information could be lost.
Yeah.
In that translation. It's like you have this illness and you have no idea even what's happening, what these doctors are even saying to you. Like, you know, he's just like, take it. I found out later that my dad took some of the hardest chemo treatments. He fucking was like, sign me up for that surgery. It was a fucking intense surgery. He took it all on. He was just like very like strong, and he just took it because he just wanted to beat it so bad. And obviously anybody would want to beat it, you know? So November 2019, that was the last time I was able to see my dad. In January of 2020, he moved to Japan, back to his hometown. And then when he moved back to Japan, he knew in his heart, I think, that it was just a ticking time bomb. Just waiting for it to happen, I guess. For him to pass. Anyway, January 2020, he moves to Japan. March 2020, we had a trip for my birthday to go see him. But of course, COVID happened. So we had to cancel the trip. There was no way around him. During that time, he was isolated alone in his house, which he lived in an apartment by himself. And we would talk on this app called Line, which is like WhatsApp for Japanese people. And we would talk on there, FaceTime on there ever so often, but it wasn't as often as I fucking would have liked. I'm gonna be honest, you know, it's never as often as it's never as often as you'd like, but then finally the trip gets rescheduled to March of 2021, and it was a couple days after my birthday. It was March 31st. And weeks before this trip, I'm just mentally preparing to see him, because it's been 2 years, or almost 2 years since I have. So I'm like, just, as soon as that trip got planned for March 2021, pretty much my mind instantly was like, I don't know what the fuck that's gonna be like. I was just scared of getting COVID so that I wouldn't be able to go for the flight, so I like isolated myself for 2 weeks before going to, even though I was negative, but I really isolated myself like in my room, just thinking with these nasty thoughts of the fuck. And I remember thinking, if I go there and I see him, how the fuck am I gonna leave him? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not gonna leave, I'm gonna stay. I would go in March and I would finish out my semester. My semester was only 2 months and it's Zoom. So I was like, oh, I'll just stay. I'll stay until the summer. I'll stay as long as I have. I just couldn't imagine myself saying goodbye in that trip. Like, this time, that goodbye, I knew it would be the last goodbye. So I was like, that goodbye, I'm dreading that goodbye, you know? I can't say goodbye. And I told my sister, and she was like, I think you should stay too. I think this is your time to step in and take care of him. And for her, this trip was, I'm gonna go there and tell him I'm gonna do me, and I'm gonna focus on me finally, and I'm gonna go there to tell him I'm okay, kind of thing. Ultimately, I fly for like 11 hours, 11, 12 hours. The whole plane ride, like Julia was describing, I'm like running through scenarios in my mind, what he's gonna look like, how it's gonna be, like what I'm gonna say to him, just all of it. And the possibility of him, well, I guess I should say that a few days before this, I had this inkling, terrible feeling that something bad happened or something bad is going to happen. So I was like texting him a lot more, calling him. There was this one day where I called him like 3 times and he didn't answer, and I was like, oh fuck. But then he answered, he was like, sorry about that, I couldn't answer, like I'm here, like blah blah blah. And then I was like, okay. But yeah, so I go there, I land, and then I'm on the FaceTime with my boyfriend at the time, and my mom approaches me after baggage claim, and she's like, you might want to get off the phone. And I was like, why? And she was like, your dad died. And I was like, I have to go. I hang up the FaceTime, and my face is just like, just pure shock. Like I don't even know what. I just remember not being able to like go in to hug my mom. I just remember feeling kind of distant from her, so I needed to like walk away. I didn't know what the fuck to do. I had no idea, you know. We were gonna go quarantine in this like hotel, but we went directly to see him from the airport. But I walk away from my mom. The only person that I wanted to talk to was my sister. And I feel so guilty for doing this, but I called her instantly. I called her right away, and I was like, I didn't ask her who she's with. I didn't ask her if she's alone. I didn't ask her if she's ready to hear this terrible fucking news. I just said, Dad died. And she hung up on me almost instantly. I called her selfishly for her to provide me this comfort that, what the fuck, she can't provide. Like, now she has to deal with this. And I later find out that it was in the middle of like packing a suitcase full of things that she was gonna bring him. Thankfully she wasn't alone, because I don't know what the fuck would have happened if she was, but yeah. Basically she just had her own processing with that, and it was not pretty and not good. And yeah. I get back to my mom after having told my sister that, and I was just like, damn. I don't know what to do. I think I texted in the group chat with my house group chat, and I was like, guys, my dad passed right before I got to see him. And they were like, damn, like they sent their sorries, and it was just like, this is just, it means nothing to me right now, to be honest. Like, I appreciate what they have all said, but it's just
nothing is comforting in that time at all.
Literally nothing comforts you.
No, like you could literally give me a plate of my favorite food of all time and literally send me everything and my favorite things of all time, and it would not be comforting.
Yeah, there's really nothing you can say or do that would bring comfort in those times. So now I'm just sitting in this car with my mom, her childhood best friend, and this random guy who's like with her. So now, it's just, I'm like in the back seat. It's a 2-hour car ride into my hometown. So this whole 2-hour car ride, I don't feel like I can talk to my mom. My mom is like probably scared. She doesn't know how to comfort, so she's like just scared of how my reaction's gonna be. I know she's uneasy because she picks her fingers just like me, and she was just like doing this the whole time. And I'm doing that and like staring out the window. I'm instantly listening to music. That's the only thing I had. So I was just like listening to sad music that reminded me of him, bawling my eyes out. But then I just felt like they were staring at me.
Yeah.
So I just would have to be like not crying. But then I start crying again. So that was me for like 2 hours. Ah, fuck, man. Then we pull up to this building I've never been to, and we go inside. It's like so quiet. They kept it open past hours so that I can go, and it was so quiet, so Japanese, so polite, you know, like hushed tones. We go upstairs, and it's like this weird, I don't know, it's just like a sliding door kind of thing. Kind of felt like a hospital, like a Japanese hospital. And behind that sliding door was my dad laying there. And they both all three of them go in there really quick, and I'm just standing outside the door like, I can't fucking go in there. I cannot see that, you know? But then my mom comes and she's like, you should fucking... She didn't say you should fucking... you should fucking go in there. No. My mom comes and she's like, you have to go. Like, you should touch him. I was like, I'm not going to touch him. I did end up touching him, but...
Me too.
Yeah. But I was like, oh, I'm not going to touch him. That's so scary. Like, this, I don't know. Just the thought of that was, like, so unsettling. But she's like, you should go in there. I, like, fucking had so many panic attacks before I ultimately, like, went in, broke down. Obviously, as you can imagine how terrible that would be. Seeing him with, like, a Yankee hat next to him, as he should, because he was always repping the Yankees. And then surrounded by, like, a bunch of pictures he'd taken. Yeah, it was just... And the face that was in there was not the face I remembered, you know? At this point, he was skin and bones. He was so skinny, to a point I didn't even know or notice when I FaceTimed him how skinny he was. Like, but yeah, that was that. The next day, we go to pick up my sister from the airport. Thankfully, she came. The person that she was with convinced her to come because otherwise she was saying she wouldn't have come. And if she didn't fucking come, man, that I would not have survived that month. But, yeah, she came. We picked her up. We do this whole thing again. We go directly. We do this 2-hour drive. And then we go directly to the same place. And then my sister has her moment with him, and she's crying, and I'm like, I'm not crying because I'm trying to support her now. But yeah, then, you know, then it was like a weird couple days in between that and the funeral, because it was like living in a dissociative state. Like, I had to go to the mall to go shopping for funeral clothes and like funeral shoes. And I was just, like, laughing, like, these would be cute for my funeral, like, for the funeral.
I did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I was like, OMG, this is going to be such a cute dress for my mom's fucking funeral.
Yeah, it's fucked up, but that's what it was. I was, like, in Uniqlo, like, the Japanese Uniqlo, like, oh, these shoes would be cute for my dad's funeral. Yeah. Then the funeral was the whole thing. For my dad, and this shouldn't have been, but I'm glad it was a huge-ass funeral, like, 160 people came or something like that total. It was like passing through. It was the wake, I guess, the Japanese wake, where they like come up, everybody comes, bows, lights and incense, and then kind of walks back. But for my dad, it was a huge thing that both floors of the funeral home, which normally would hold 2 different services, the bottom floor was a museum setup where they had set up like all his pictures and all his like clothes that he had from Mahmoud's, and which was his store, and then upstairs was where like you would do all that. And oh my god, that was just awful, going in there hearing like Boys to Men, like The End of the Road play as I'm like walking through this whole like museum for my dad. I'm seeing people I haven't seen in so many years, and like I know they're looking at me for a reaction. You know, it's kind of weird because when you're at your parents' funeral, which you never want to be at, but everybody kind of has their eyes on you or the people that they think would be most impacted, and to see how they are reacting to this. But yeah, that was what it was like. The next day was his cremation. I won't really go into too much about that, but because we can go into a whole funeral episode.
There will be a
fun little funeral
episode.
Sure. But basically, this was where he was getting cremated, and that was when reality hit me like a brick, pushing him into the cremation little like elevator type thing, and then that gate closing. I just remember like falling to my knees and being like, holy fucking shit. Like, that was the hardest I cried up until that point, because it felt so real. Like, that body, even though it wasn't alive anymore, now is going to be all ash and bone. Like, that was just a hard reality to grasp.
Honestly, I have to say, I used to always be like, yeah, cremation is like the way to go. Like, why are you going to preserve the body? But like now, I wish there was still. Like, I have a bracelet with my mom's ashes in it. Like, I literally have my mom's ashes everyone has a little bit. We spread them. And it was, like, a good thing. Because, like, oh, she's everywhere. She's here. But then it's like, nah, that's literally some damn dust.
Yeah,
like, that is nothing. And it's so fucking weird to think about that was her body.
It is weird, yeah. I personally still like cremation and ashes because of the fact that you can spread them in places that they love. And, like, obviously it's like, oh, where are they now? Like, they're just dust in the wind. We're just dust in the wind. But, no, like, I don't know. Something about that, I think... I don't know. I don't know if there's a good way
no, there's not. I was actually about to say that. I was like, okay, I did just say that I prefer, but I don't have.
There's no preference.
There's no
know?
preference. The preference is you're alive. And
the preference is to stay alive.
Love you and hug you.
Exactly.
No, I just think that. And I can't even say that if we did bury her, that I would be here now being like, oh, I wish we cremated her. I don't know. I don't know. But I do feel that way sometimes. But at the same time, I'm glad.
It's not easy seeing the person you love turn into dust. And you're like,
yeah, exactly.
What the fuck is this? This man is now explaining that this used to be my dad's head, this is his arms, this is his legs. I'm like...
That was also you, like, that is not an American, like, they don't, like, present you and they're like, oh, no. Like,
they did a whole analysis.
Give you a fucking Ziploc and they're like, there's your mom.
Yeah, they did a whole analysis.
Obviously in Japan it's totally different.
Yeah. And there were a bunch of other things that happened, which I won't really get into because I can't do this whole other episode about it. But yeah, that was the whole thing. And then that was like all happened in the first week that I was there. And I was there for another like 2 to 3 weeks after that. That whole 2 to 3 weeks I spent at my dad's house, which was now my grandma and grandpa's house because they chose to stay and live there, but it was my dad's house. I walk into my dad's house and see the half-eaten groceries in the fridge. I'm seeing his snacks because he loves snacks, so there was a bunch of snacks. I'm seeing like his hospital bed that just became his bed in his bedroom. I'm seeing the couch that I would always see him FaceTiming from. I'm seeing, like, notepads with things that he's written. I'm just seeing so much. I'm uncovering. I'm going through all these things. And I never knew this life of his because I never saw his home. So this is the first time for me to, like, see his home. And that was just awful. It was just awful. Also, I met my dad's brother for the first time in my whole life. All 22 years, I've never met him. And that was the first time. And it was cool to get to know him because he really had so much, like, him and my dad definitely are brothers, is all I can say, yeah. And it was cool to see. But, yeah, those next 3 weeks I spent trying to comfort my grandpa and my grandma who had just lost their son. And they're old. They didn't think that was going to happen. They didn't think they were going to outlive my dad.
I know.
And that's just, like, seeing their sadness became my sadness, too, because I was just like, damn. You know, and their sadness came from me being sad, having lost my dad, and they were like, damn. So it was just a lot of damn.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also, throughout this whole time, it was weird because my parents are divorced, and they had been for 4 or 5 years now. And then seeing my mom get all this praise throughout the funeral, like, oh, you're so strong. No one knew they were divorced, so she was like, oh, people were going up to her like, oh, you're his wife, like... This must be so bad for you. And she was like it was just so awkward, you know? It was just an awkward scenario. So seeing that was terrible. Coming back to California after that felt like just weird. I just didn't feel like myself, you know, like dissociating. Because I hadn't been in Japan in years. So whoever I was there, I didn't have anything to compare it to. When I came back to California, though, it was like, what the fuck is this, you know? And it came to the point where I literally couldn't do anything for a while. I couldn't think about any decisions. I couldn't do anything, really.
That's so accurate.
Yeah.
You can't do anything. Like, that's another reason why I'm so shocked that I was even able to do school. Like, I couldn't think, like, straight.
Yeah, I don't know how I finished
that semester. I couldn't even create cohesive... I could speak, like, to my friends and... to my sister and like to my boyfriend. Could I conduct interviews? No, I could not think of any words. It's called grief brain. You need to look it up if you experience it. You probably do if you were grieving, especially like in those early days.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, you cannot think.
And I had to attend class in Japan too. Like, I still went to Zoom classes, but, like, I was just, like, on the couch, like, crying, like, muted. And also, throughout this time, I had this group project where we were writing a paper about him, which is kind of just terrible.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
And then when I got back to California, they did a presentation. I opted out of joining that presentation because I would have cried. But they presented my dad's business in front of the whole class, and I was just, like, muted. And then my teacher told the whole class, like, that my dad passed. And I was just like... Oh, my God. I was just like, yeah, thank you. I mean...
Thank you.
No, that's literally what I said. I came off the mic and I was like...
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for doing that. That's, like, all I could say.
Yeah.
And also
what are you going to say? No, this monologue? No.
Also, one of the girls in my group mispronounced his name, which really pissed me off, but whatever.
Really, girl? You couldn't practice? Really?
Yeah. But yeah, that's it. And then, that's it. And everything after that was my loss. And then everything after that was just fighting this existential dread every day.
Yes.
Just, like... I could not get out of bed. If I got out of bed, it was like accomplishment. That's what it came down to. Totally. If I showered, I deserved the fucking award of life.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, it was.
The littlest things become your biggest victories. Like sleeping through the night. Finally was like a big ass victory.
Right.
Like showering.
Yeah.
Is so hard. Mm-hmm. It is literally a whole realm of depression.
Yeah.
I think. For me, and I think for you too, grief is depression. And I remember like saying that to my therapist once, like, I have depression even worse now because I have this grief. Like it feels like depression symptoms.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They often coincide, and grief leads to depression too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because of that existential crisis, what you were talking about, that's like that is exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. And that plays also into the dissociation thing. Like, all of that and the depression is like, leads to that existential crisis. You're like, oh my God. And then you start thinking about the afterlife and like where he is and is he talking to me and like, what does these numbers mean that I always see and these signs that I think I saw. Like, it is all leading to this existential dread. And
also, I want to put out there that I had so much going on when I got back. I had to finish my semester. It was mid-April, and my semester ended like first couple weeks of May. So when I got back, instantly I'm in school mode, trying to do that. When I finished school, I immediately applied for a job doing this interview, which I can't even believe I did.
Oh my God.
Then I got this job I was working at like 3 to 4 times a week as a host, where I would have to be like, hey guys, how are you guys doing tonight? And then I was in this toxic, at this time I was in this toxic relationship, and as much as I wanted to, I didn't feel like I could really unleash just how much I wanted to. And I just didn't think... Also, I couldn't unleash the way I wanted to. And also, there were... because I was pulling away a little bit, he took it personally and it became about him. And now I'm comforting him rather than him comforting me. Now I'm comforting him for pulling away. I'm like, sorry, I'm pulling away. Like, he's not, I'm like, so what? He's not asking me why am I pulling away, or like, oh, I'm sorry that you feel like you have to pull away. So I didn't really feel like I started processing my grief until July, when I finally went back to New York, which kind of was like ripping off a fat ass Band-Aid, because that's where I grew up and that's where most of my memories are with him. So when I went there, it finally started to feel like I'm like opening up this bandage of grief and really unpacking. But up until that point, it was just dissociating, dispersonal derealization, whatever you're saying, all that. And just state of numbness, not really thinking about it, not wanting to think about it, suppressing it with alcohol, with drugs. Not terrible drugs, just weed, but, it can become a dependency like it was for me. And I was just overusing it to suppress so much shit. And, and that's led me to the point where I had to stop, and now I'm like... Now I'm at a point where we're raw dogging reality.
Yes, this is water.
Yeah, this is water. We're not even drinking right now. And we debated it but we would have too much glass on the
yeah,
table,
no.
so we had to keep the alcohol out. I mean, it was a hard decision to make, but
A little hard.
yeah. And you know what? This was really a lot harder than I ever imagined. This was not easy, and I don't. Yeah, it was just.
Wasn't.
Yeah, it was just a. Not
Right now, I'm like thinking of all the things that I still have to say, and I
Yeah.
have to remind myself that there's gonna be so many episodes.
There's gonna be so many episodes because we have. That was a
Yeah.
really. It didn't feel like it,
There's
but that was
so
a
much
shortened
more.
version.
There's so much more. Like, seriously, I swear to God, I was skimming the surface and I talked for 40 minutes.
Me
Who knows?
too. I
So,
swear to God.
That's literally the surface.
Yeah.
Like, there is so much more.
Yeah. So tune in to find out some more. To kind of just end it on a good note, or to end it on a to wrap things up. We
To end it. Not on a good note, just to end it.
Yeah, just to end it. Yeah, we. Thank you guys if you guys are still listening at this
Yes.
point. I
Oh my
know
God,
that
thank you.
episode was not easy to listen to. Well, you know what? It was harder to fucking say for us.
It was harder to live it, okay?
So thank you guys for listening if you're still listening. And yeah, if any of you guys out there can relate, I hope that you can, and I hope that you feel comfortable sharing it with someone, because even though it was like so much, I feel a lot lighter now having done that. How do you feel? How do you feel?
I don't feel lighter. I wish I did.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm glad that this first episode's done,
Yeah,
honestly. This is like the hardest episode, question mark. I just wanted to say that there will be so much more coming. And if you want to write in some things maybe you want to talk about, or just like some things you want to say if you related to anything that we said in this episode or any episode, please write us. Like, we'd really love to hear any ideas or anything. We have a lot of ideas, but
absolutely. Maybe we'll make a Google forum and we'll put it in the link
for
or
sure.
something for you guys. And yeah.
All right, that's it. See you guys next episode.
Grief Uncensored.
Grief Uncensored. Bye.